Hello, everyone. I am Sean, and welcome once again to my Horror Corner. Uh, Thank you all so much for watching the video today. I know I say it every time, but I really do appreciate it. So, thank you for watching the video. I have noticed that views have really been up a lot. Quite a bit on these last few videos. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much to everyone who is watching and to those of you who are sharing the videos and those kind of things on social media. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. If you've subscribed to the channel, a extra thank you to you. That means so much to me to have people out there who are supporting me and encouraging me to keep going with this. It's just, again, I know it's nothing big, it's nothing special, but I love horror movies and just having a place where I can come on and talk about them and spend a few minutes just, I enjoy it, and so it really means a lot to me that there are people out there subscribing and watching and sharing and liking and commenting. So thank you all so much for being involved. I really do appreciate that so very very much. Uh, Today we are going to be continuing along with this Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and we're getting close to wrapping it up now. We're going to be talking about the final movie that's come out so far in the franchise. And then I'll come back in a few days and do kind of one more wrap up episode where um, I rank the movies. I kind of talk about Leatherface in general a little bit, and just kind of close this series out, and then we'll get into some other things from there. So almost done with this Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, but it has been a lot of fun being able to revisit this franchise and watch some of these movies. And um, you know, if you've watched the other episodes, you know there's some that I really really enjoy, and are some of my all-time favorites in this franchise. So. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. But um, normally at this point, I would show you any new collectibles that I picked up, but I haven't really picked up anything in the last couple of days. I'm just now, I think, finally recovered from being sick. I was sick for about a week there, which um, kind of slowed me down and got me behind a little bit, but I'm back on schedule now and feeling better. So, yeah, just luckily I'm off today for the holiday and uh, yeah, able to kind of get back on track and even get ahead a little bit. So, but nothing new to show collectible wise. I also would typically show you the Blu-ray or 4K or whatever if I own this movie, the case at this point. But I don't own this movie, and I assume that it's not even out there. Just from what I've looked at a little bit, it being a Netflix film, I couldn't find that Netflix had released it anywhere on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and I don't think they do that. Honestly, there might be. I mean, maybe this is stupid of me to even say, but there might be a few Netflix films out there that you can buy like that. But I mean, I know the Wednesday series they did you can purchase, but I just haven't seen this one out there at all. And I would get it just to complete the collection because I own every other movie in the franchise. So I would buy this if it was available, but I just haven't seen it anywhere. If you do know where you can get this movie, and not like a bootleg copy, but if you can, legitimately buy this movie, let me know where it's at because I would like to pick up a copy. So, with all of that being said, nothing to show or nothing else to talk about on that. We're just going to go ahead and get right into the movie. And as always, I'm going to start off with a brief synopsis of the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022. Melody, her teenage sister Lila, and their friends Dante and Ruth head to the remote town of Harlow, Texas to start an idealistic new business venture. But their dream soon turns into a waking nightmare when they accidentally disrupt the home of Leatherface, the deranged serial killer whose blood soaked legacy continues to haunt the area residents, including Sally Hardesty, the sole survivor of the infamous 1973 massacre, who is hell-bent on seeking revenge. Um, yeah, that's the synopsis for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there are definitely some things in there we're going to get into it. I'm going to try not to get ahead of myself, but uh, I've talked to a few people even recently about this film, and there's not a lot of people out there that like this movie. There's a lot of people that have some issues with it, and yeah, I think I know why. So we'll get into some of that here in just a minute. But before we do, a few facts. Of course, this film was released on February 18th of 2022 on Netflix, directed by David Blue Garcia, screenplay by Chris Thomas Devlin, story by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayaguis. I'm not sure, probably saying that wrong. Based on characters by Kim Heinkel and Toby Hooper, produced by Fede Alvarez, Herbert W. Gaines, Kim Heinkel, Ian Heinkel, and Pat Cassidy. Cinematography done by Ricardo Diaz, music by Colin Stetson. Production companies were Legendary Pictures, Exerbia Films, and Bad Hombre. Distributed, as I said, by Netflix, a runtime of 83 minutes, a budget of $20 million to make this film. Um, I'm curious where all that money went, honestly. but yeah, we'll talk about that later. Rotten Tomatoes scores 30% from critics, which is up a little bit, believe it or not, but a 25% from audience on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um, One of the things, as far as the critics and the audience, I do read some other reviews, just kind of trying to get an idea of what people think about this film and maybe why scores were low or why they were high or whatever the case may be. But there was two things that I just kept seeing over and over, worded different ways, but really the same two themes were present in a lot of reviews from critics and from the audience, and that is that while the movie delivers on the gore, it's Leatherface is not scary in this film. Um, and I will say, I think I agree with that. It's just not the same in this movie. I mean, anytime you're dealing with a big, hulking person with a chainsaw chasing you, that's scary. But it just doesn't have that same feel as a lot of other movies in the franchise. The original, I talked about, if you watch those episodes, how much I enjoyed the remake from 2003 and the prequel from 2006, and I thought that that was maybe Leatherface at his most terrifying. It's just not the same feel here in this film at all. So gory but not scary was pretty much a something that I was reading in a lot of reviews from critics and from the audience. And then something else that I read with a lot of the audience reviews was that most people just don't think the film makes a lot of sense. There's too many plot holes, and I definitely see that as well. I had seen this movie when it first came out on Netflix. I checked it out almost immediately, being a fan of Leatherface and overall the franchise. And then shortly thereafter, I remember having a lot of mixed thoughts and feelings about the movie, and so I watched it again just to see if a rewatch would help because sometimes that does help with things. I mean, it helped me with the one that we talked about, last episode, Leatherface from 2017. So I watched it again, and then I watched it again yesterday before getting ready to record today. Um, and yeah, there are, a lot of times I ignore little plot holes and things like that because I don't always, the plot is not the most important thing to me in a slasher film. I mean, it needs to be one, but it's not what I'm looking for the most, is some kind of real solid plot. But at the same time, there's almost too many holes in this one, even for me, which is saying something. But a few other things as far as um, facts about the film before we get into my thoughts and opinions overall. So, and this is something that confuses me a little bit because I had seen this same type of situation, I believe, after Texas Chainsaw 3D kind of ran into the same situation as some things happened with the franchise here. So, after the release of Leatherface in 2017, Lionsgate had plans for 5 more films. They planned on doing quite a bit more with Texas Chainsaw. However, they lost the rights due to the time it took to release Leatherface. Um, I believe that I read something very similar with the company that had the rights to the film after Texas Chainsaw 3D, which came out, I think it was 2013. Um, they also lost the rights because things were taking too long. And it makes me curious. I tried to look into it a little bit and just couldn't find a lot. But how long studios have to actually get things out? Because now seems to be something that's happening a lot in this franchise, or at least it's happened twice in this franchise, where, excuse me, where the companies are losing the rights to the films because they're taking too long to get things out. I didn't really realize there was a time frame. That if they had the rights, they had the rights. I didn't realize they had to get things done in a certain amount of time, but apparently they do. So, um, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Legendary Pictures then acquired the rights to the franchise, and initially they also had plans for several movies and even for TV to take Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre to television, but nothing ever came of any of that. Um, this film, it's very obvious when you watch it and you look at it. uh, It definitely is trying to duplicate what Blumhouse was doing with the Halloween franchise at that time, and they were very open with it. Um, One of the things about this film, it, it's another direct sequel. It is ignoring a lot of other films in the franchise and kind of going as a direct sequel to the original from 1974. And similar to what Blumhouse was doing with Halloween, Leatherface is supposed to be about 60 years old in this movie. And so you can see, again, in there, they admitted it as well, that they were trying to duplicate what Blumhouse was doing with Halloween, whereas Michael Myers was older for the 2018 film, Leatherface is older for this. In Halloween, they brought back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Um, they couldn't bring back the actor; she had passed away, but they do bring back the character of Sally Hardesty for this. So really trying to duplicate that. Um, yeah, I don't want to make this a Halloween episode, but I think while that works in some ways, and there are some things about those newer Halloween films that I liked, there was other things I didn't. I don't think this worked as well for Texas Chainsaw as it did even for Halloween, in my opinion. So I think that might have been the first mistake. I appreciate the attempt, but I just don't think it worked as well. Um, Initially, Ryan and Andy Tohill were hired as the directors of this film, but they were fired shortly in. Um, they had gotten some things filmed and some things done, but the studio was not impressed with their take and what they were doing. They were let go, and David Garcia was brought in and had to start all over. The film was filmed in Bulgaria, and one of the biggest challenges, from what I was reading, was trying to make Bulgaria look like Texas. Um, to make this film look as realistic as possible, and I can see that being a bit of a challenge. But uh, you know, that's kind of all the behind the scenes stuff I had. We'll go ahead and get into the film, but there are some things I've said several times, and I'll probably talk about it more next episode. But I've mentioned a few times how, Leatherface. I've always wondered why Leatherface didn't get some of the same attention that like Michael and Jason and Freddy got. Because anytime you talk about the slashers, the big three are always considered Michael, Jason, and Freddy. And I always wondered because Leatherface started before any of that. I mean, he was the first one out of that group. So I wondered a lot of times why he didn't get um, that same recognition that the other ones got. And I really think a lot of it comes down to, I talk about in this film, Leatherface doesn't really seem scary. I think a lot of it is just with this trying again to be another direct sequel. There are so many films in this franchise, and unfortunately, uh, that happens in some other franchises as well. But there's not a lot of continuity in the franchise. There's too many things being ignored, too many different timelines, that kind of thing. I think that hurts a little bit. Now, that happens a lot for Michael and the Halloween franchise as well, and you know that's an issue for some people there. I think for me, when I look at this, I think it's somewhat, so many different actors portraying Leatherface, so many different timelines, not a lot of continuity, and then just some crazy ideas in general where this franchise is concerned, in my opinion, really hurt Leatherface's legacy somewhat, and probably why he's not mentioned in that big three. And I'll probably, like I said, talk about that more next week. But um, I see that, especially watching this film as well, just how different these films feel all the time, from one to the other a lot. And so I think that hurts things as well when it comes to Leatherface. And I think this movie, like I said, is a good example of that. Um, I don't want to walk through the plot in tremendous detail, but I do want to cover a few things because I know so far it probably sounds like I really don't like this movie. I don't think it's a terrible film. I think there are a few good things in it, but I definitely don't think it's near the top of the franchise. And so I want to point out some things that I like and dislike about it. Um, I do appreciate the opening of the film. I'll start there. Just in that, if it's going to be a direct sequel, then I like the fact that it does give us a brief recap of that original story, from the 1974 film. And I appreciate John Larroquette returning as the narrator. I don't know if I mentioned. I think I failed to mention actually the cast, which I normally try to cover. Um, I honestly don't remember if I did that or not. So let's go over the cast real quick. We have Elsie Fisher as Lila, Sarah Yarkin as Melody, Mark Burnham as Leatherface, Mo Dunford as Richter, uh, Olwen, I'm assuming is how you pronounce her name, Fourier as Sally Hardesty, Jessica Elaine as Catherine, Jacob Lattimore as Dante, Nell Hudson as Ruth, Alice Craig as Virginia or Jenny, and then John Larroquette, like I said, returning as the narrator. So I do appreciate that. I like the fact that Larroquette came back and did the narrating, and they give us that brief introduction there to what happened before at the beginning of the film. But then immediately following is where I think we start to have some issues with this film. I mentioned, a lot of the audience didn't think the movie made sense, and I think we jump into that almost immediately. Why these young entrepreneurs and social media influencers would pick this area to go start a new business completely blows my mind. Um, I mean, this almost looks like a one street town. It looks like there's one road in this town. It looks like an abandoned town. It looks like everything around it looks like a ghost town. I mean, everything around it looks like it's shut down. And again, it looks like one street. I mean, to me, as I am watching this movie, um, this looks like a soundstage where they're just, making a movie at. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they would pick this spot um, to launch this new business and bring in all these, investors to try to do this thing. It already doesn't make sense to me, and I already think has some issues early on. So I can definitely see why the movie not making sense would be an issue for people because I get it immediately in this film. A couple of other things that I'm not necessarily a fan of. So what we figure out is they go and they um, this house or building or whatever it is that they've purchased apparently was an orphanage, and the woman that runs the orphanage, Virginia, is still there and believes that she still owns the house. And we get a brief introduction to Leatherface there. As there's kind of an argument about things, and we see him standing at the top of the stairs. And she tells him to, go back, everything's fine, and tells them that that's the last of her kids. Um, how did Leatherface end up in an orphanage when he was an adult? Um, Again, doesn't make sense. Already a plot hole because it's not like Leatherface was a kid in the 1974 film. He was an adult. So how did he go from what happened there um, to being in an orphanage? It just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. So there's another plot hole with the film. Um, and who is this lady? I mean, I don't again, right off the bat, I'm very confused with this movie and what is going on. And it does affect the film. It does hurt the film. A lot of times, stuff like that, I just kind of overlook. But this was bothering me about this one. And even later on, there's a character, I believe it's Melody is her name, um, that she finds out that, because the argument is she thinks she still owns the house. She thinks she should be there. They say they bought the house. And, there's an argument about all of that. The cops show up and they're escorting Virginia out. She ends up having a heart attack. Um, Melody later finds some paperwork that shows that uh, Virginia should be still owning the house. That what was going on was not fair to her, was illegal or something like that. Um, Even that doesn't help. It still doesn't answer any questions. It just bothers me about that. And so I think that's what I run into is there's just so many things in this film that do bother me. Now, that being said, when she has this heart attack and they're taking her to the hospital, and one of the characters, I don't remember which one, Ruth, I believe, goes along with the police that are taking her. They're talking about calling an ambulance, and they basically say they are the ambulance, so they're going to try to get her to the nearest hospital. She goes along with them, and the Leatherface character goes as well. It's like people don't realize he's Leatherface, so they think it's just one of, this lady's kids in the orphanage, and he's going too. Um, when she dies in route to the hospital, and Leatherface kind of goes crazy and starts killing people, I do think we get some good kills there. I do like that. If you appreciate if the gore factor is one of the things that you look for in your slasher films, this has got that, and I do like some of the kills we get there, and I like the scene where the two police officers are dead, the van has crashed, um, and I think her name is Ruth, is there in the front seat, and she's seen Leatherface kill these people. She knows the van has crashed. She's injured. She's looking around to start with. She doesn't know where Leatherface is, and then she kind of sees him in a mirror, and so she's trying to play dead. Then she thinks he's gone, and so she's trying to escape, and it turns out he's still right there. I think this is a good scene. I think we get a little bit here. I don't think it's scary, but it gives us a little bit of some tense moments. And again, I like the kills here, so I like this scene. So even though there were things that I already wasn't liking about the film and that were just bugging me, I did think this scene helped. We got some good kills in the van, and that was a good. I enjoyed that part of the film. But then we get right back into some of the chaos, in my opinion. And maybe chaos is the wrong word, but just some of the things that just don't make sense and just doesn't work. As before she gets killed by Leatherface, she sends a text to Melody. Um, Why she didn't text the whole group, I don't know, or maybe she did and they just didn't have their phones. I thought that was odd. But once Melody gets these texts and finds out what's going on, why, to me, though, she should have talked to the whole group and they should have been out of there. And that's just not what happens. I think she talks to Lila. Um, but the other characters in the film are still this Richter character, who I believe is a mechanic, and how you have a mechanic who is so busy and doing well in this little ghost town where there doesn't appear to be any other business other than a rundown orphanage and a couple of cops. That blows my mind. Um, this character in general just kind of seems unnecessary, and why he seems to be so um, take charge of the whole town at times just doesn't make sense to me. As you know, he's not letting them leave until they show paperwork. Well, it's none of his business. Like, there's just so many things I don't get about this film. Um, but then Leatherface starts showing up and killing people, and so again, there's just a lot of plot holes, a lot of things that don't make sense to me, things that are bothering me. I do still like the kills. I think the kills are looking good in the film, but that's almost it. I don't think the cast of characters is that likable. um, so many holes in the story. I just don't like what's happening, but the kills are good, which kind of make it, in my opinion, at this point, just your average everyday slasher film. It's nothing great, um, because of some good kills and a few decent moments here and there. You get some good things, but it's still just very middle of the road, very mid. And that's being generous, I think, at this point in this film. Um, one of my biggest issues with this movie is what I'll get into here because this is kind of where this happens is that we find out Sally Hardesty, the survivor of the first film, the first final girl, uh, is now a Texas Ranger and has been waiting all these years to get a chance to get Leatherface. I don't think I buy that either. Is it possible? Sure. But I just immediately don't like where that went with the story either. I just thought that was kind of a stretch. And you almost can't tell. I really think they tried so hard to do with that character just what, like I said, Halloween had done with the Laurie Strode character, in that they've changed her so much. She's not the same as she was in the beginning, which, okay, that's fine. But now she's some, hardened Texas Ranger who just wants revenge and supposed to be a badass now. But yet still has several moments where she's almost breaking down and afraid and trying to figure everything out. I just don't buy the Sally Hardesty character at all in this film, and I think it really was kind of dumb the way they did that, to try to bring her back and what they do with her. And even when she shows up to save a couple of the girls, she really doesn't last long. There's a moment that makes no sense to me where she goes into the orphanage and she finds Leatherface in his room. Um, right there, she's got her opportunity to get the revenge that she wanted to kill him, but instead she wants him to say her name and remember her. Why? Leatherface probably never knew her name, so why are we going that route with this? Um, we also, Leatherface then, who has been just attacking and killing people at random, um, just gets up and walks by her like he's ignoring her. That doesn't make any sense. There's just so many things that just don't click. And then just within a few minutes later, he ends up mortally wounding Sally, and she's going to die a few minutes later. So I just don't like what they did with that character. I don't like that part of the story at all. The one thing I did skip over that I will go back to, the bus scene I do like. I really like that scene where, they've got all these investors on this bus and they've kind of turned it into a party bus while they're trying to figure out what's going on. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the same time, okay, that's fine. And it does set up uh, what, in my opinion, is a pretty entertaining scene where Leatherface gets on the bus and just starts killing people. And once he first gets on there with his chainsaw, of course, all of these people pull out their phones and start recording him. And one of the guys tells him that if he does anything, he's going to be canceled. Kind of a little bit of a slap at the cancel culture, which I'm 100% in favor of because I think cancel culture is so stupid. And I don't know, I may lose what little bit of an audience I have now for saying that, but that's just not something I've ever um, thought was a good idea. I think cancel culture is ridiculous, and so the fact that that guy makes that statement and everybody's trying to record Leatherface with their phone so that they can show what he's doing, and then he just starts cutting people up. I enjoyed that scene. I thought that was a good scene, and again, we get some good kills in it. You get some gore. So again, kind of a fun scene there, and it's just those little things like that in this movie that keep it, I think, from being terrible. To be completely honest with you, is because again, so many holes in the plot, not really any likable characters in my opinion, but you do keep getting good kills. Um, and it just kind of saves the movie from being unwatchable, I guess, in my opinion, because if it wasn't for these kills, I think I might get bored with this film very quickly. I will say, I think one of the things that might have made this film better is that if this film wasn't a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, take out the character of Sally Hardesty, and instead of Leatherface, let this just be some random, you know, crazy guy who's in this town and doesn't like people coming in and starts, you know, attacking them. That might have made this a better movie. It might have been okay that way. Um, take out the Texas Chainsaw Massacre aspect and just make it its own thing, it might would have been more enjoyable. I don't know that, but it might would have been more enjoyable because I think it's trying to, again, the Sally Hardesty character, in my opinion, is just not good and is ridiculous in this film. Um, I don't like what they're doing with Leatherface and him being part of an orphanage. Like I said, there's just so many things about this film that just don't add up to me. We do, like I said, get a few good scenes. I think it's Melody and Lila when it's just them and Leatherface. It's all that's left, and one of them's under the house and he's trying to get through with the chainsaw through the floor. Some good tense moments there. I mean, there are some decent scenes in the film. Uh, it's just not enough to make it a good movie, or yeah, not enough to make it a good movie in my opinion. It's just very average, very mid. Even when they have opportunities to kill Leatherface, so many times. Well, I say so many times. I think it's three times in this movie Leatherface gets shot, and then but he gets shot once, and then they stop. They have so many opportunities, it seems like, to finish him off and just don't do it. And again, things that just don't make sense in this film. And even the ending of the movie, I'll go ahead and go ahead to the forward to the end. Um, as Lila and Melody think they're getting away, and they're in this car, and this is a self-driving car, which okay, that's fine, but it's just at the same time it's so stupid the way this plays out, where they've got this car on basically autopilot to just get them out of this little town, which basically just means getting off one road. And because the car is just kind of going so slowly getting started, Leatherface appears and is able to grab one of them out and cut her head off with the chainsaw. And the other one is standing up through a sunroof as the car is barely rolling away, just screaming. Again, so silly in my opinion, just the way it was done. I mean, I appreciate the fact that there's not two final girls. One of them gets caught and gets killed there. That's kind of cool, but the way they did it with the self-driving car and it barely moving away, Leatherface could have easily killed both of them and doesn't. And then they do try to pay, I guess, a tribute to that original because for the first time in a while, we go back to Leatherface uh, standing in the road as that car's easing away, and he's swinging his chainsaw and doing his little dance there, like was in some of the first couple of movies. Fine, decent tribute, but uh, overall just not great. There's a post-credit scene I think where you see Leatherface walking down the road with his chainsaw back to his hometown. Um, and I guess that's supposed to be setting up the fact that they had other things in mind to do with the franchise, is to show you that he was still out there and he still had more to do. But it's been 3 years now, I guess, and nothing's come of that yet. So we'll see what happens. I don't want there to not be any more Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I would like for somebody to find the right thing to do next, but I really hope it's not continuing this because this just doesn't land for me. Um, Rating this movie, gosh, I don't want to be too hard on it, but at the same time, again, I think we get a few decent tense moments. I think we get some really good kills, but a story full of plot holes and an unlikable cast and just Leatherface not seeming the same, it really makes it difficult. I don't think it's a terrible movie, um, but it's pretty close. There are a few things to enjoy about it. I guess I'll go right in the middle because, like I said, it's pretty much an average film in my opinion. And so, on a scale of 1 to 5, average would be right in the middle. So I'll go 2.5. 2.5 out of 5 for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, and I think that's being pretty generous. So that's my thoughts. I want to know yours. Do you like this film? Do you not like this film? Do you agree with me? What do you like about it? I want to know your opinion. So hit the like button today if you've enjoyed the video. Leave me your thoughts and opinions. Again, I want to know your how you feel about this movie. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. And yeah, continue to follow me along. I'm out there on social media as well. You can follow me. I am on Blue Sky, Instagram, um, TikTok, Letterbox, Twitter, Sean's Horror Corner. You can find me on just, like I said, on all the social media. Give me a follow. I do try to follow back as much as possible. And I'll be back in a few days and we will wrap this up and rank the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies and share some final thoughts on Leatherface. So, yeah, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.